You like documentaries like the behind the scenes and the in the making of documentaries on the DVDs and so on for James Bond? Well, today we're going to talk with someone intimately involved with some of those productions, Mark Cerulli. Mark was involved in the Goldfinger and Thunderball making of videos. You know, the documentaries on the special features discs for the movies. He's also produced, written, or directed similar videos for the Lion King and Halloween series. Hi, this is Dan.
And Tom.
Of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. We are delighted to have Mark Cerulli here to discuss his work. Welcome, Mark.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
We're happy to have you here.
Yeah. All right, Mark, we first got in touch with you initially because of your excellent documentary on, by design, the JOE CAROFF Story, which is available to subscribers of Max. Most of our audience, of course, won't know who JOE CAROFF is, but you can let us know why spy movie fans need to know about Joe. That was a fabulous documentary.
Well, thank you so much. I always say he's the most famous graphic designer you never heard of. And he's just a very low-key guy, but he had an unbelievable 50-year career designing iconic film and TV logos. The first big one he did was West Side Story, the original, not the remake.
Yeah.
And then his friend was the creative director at United Artists and said, "Hey, we have this spy movie coming up. We need a logo for a letterhead, a publicity letterhead. What can you come up with?" And he went and he came up with the original 007 logo.
So the double O with the 7, that's the gun.
Yes. He said he went to the library, he studied the Walther PPK, and then he started drawing the 2 zeros and then the 7, and that suggested a gun to him, the 7. Wow. And he said, "Well, just beef up the base and beef up the barrel," and there it is, history.
This fabulous logo that we all over the world know.
Yeah.
JOE CAROFF did.
Yep.
It's funny, if you look at it, it's changed a little over the years. Now it's a little slimmer, but he did it. Yeah. He did it way back when, and then
unbelievable.
We had to cut it out of the documentary, but he also did the typeface for From Russia with Love, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, Diamonds Are Forever.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, he's been involved with some fabulous productions and logos that people all over the world know about and don't know him. So hats off to JOE CAROFF, because he's got some fabulous stuff.
102 years old. He just turned 102.
No kidding.
So when did you film the documentary?
Okay, it was the process. So we started, I live in LA, but originally I'm from New York. And I got to know Joe because my dad was in the advertising business. And a friend of his said, "Oh, you like James Bond? You got to talk to this guy, JOE CAROFF." And I met him, and we became friends. And finally, I said, "Joe, you've done so much. Let's do a documentary." And he was so humble about it. He said, "Well, I've got to think about it."
Oh man!
And then he came back and said yes. So my partner Paul Rosen, who owns a post house called Nitrous, he and I we set up some interviews at Joe's beautiful apartment. And I went in there with a stack of all the logos that he had designed that I knew of that he had designed because he was so prolific.
Yeah.
We finished the interviews and then I'd go back home and I go, "Oh my God, he did this one." So the next time I'd be in New York, I'd go over and I would shoot him on my iPhone, which is in the documentary.
Yeah.
But
it's fantastic.
So we shot for about 3 days and then it took years because we hit a financial wall. The shooting and the editing, we had that covered, but the documentary covers his unbelievable life, growing up in the Great Depression, fighting in World War II, working in the Mad Men era, and all that needed archival footage and images, and probably about 40 some odd $1,000 worth. And, we couldn't raise it, and then fortunately, a friend of ours told Turner Classic Movies about the documentary. They took a look at it, and they got involved. They stepped up, and they they gave us the finishing funds and
Awesome.
Wow.
helped us pick the music and everything. They've been great. They were a great partner on it. They really were.
Yeah, that's terrific. Now,
So how old was he when you shot that? Because he's 102 now.
He was about 35 when we started the document. No, I would say he was early 90s.
Wow.
Early 90s, yeah.
Wow.
Wow. He looks fantastic.
Yes.
Sounds fantastic.
And sharp as a tack.
Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah.
To me, it kind of was like, okay, if he's 102 now, this is probably 30-year-old footage, and you're telling me that's amazing.
No.
That's amazing.
Fantastic. Now, I know he says it in the documentary, Mark, but did Joe do well financially from this 007 logo? Does he have any control over it now?
No. You know, it was a work for hire. He said he got paid $300 in 1961. And in the documentary, we had that translates to $2,000 today.
Wow.
But, you know, it was a work for hire, and it was so good, they've used it ever since.
Yeah, that's amazing.
60 years for a few hundred. That's but it is amazing work. I mean, what a graphic artist that nobody knows.
He did
now
the Manhattan logo.
Yeah, that's fantastic too. And I think he did Last Tango in Paris.
Last Tango, yeah.
Yes, yeah. I mean, he came up with an original type font for that movie.
Wow.
I think it's called Tango. Well, he'll tell you.
Yeah. Wow.
And the other thing was that he created the Orion Pictures logo.
Oh my God! Yes, right.
And so that's why Mike Medavoy is in our documentary. Yeah. And that was, I'll tell you, that was like going to see, you know, The Godfather. I mean, you go in this guy's office and it's lined with Oscar nominations and assigned one sheet to Rocky, and it said, to the guy who showed Rocky how to fight. So if I wasn't nervous already, I was really nervous by the time he came in. But he was wonderful, really.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's fantastic. I mean, he's done more stuff. He did the Olympic stuff for ABC, didn't he?
Yeah,
the Olympic
ABC
logo,
News, the Olympics. It just kept going on, and Great Train Robbery, Rollerball.
Yeah.
I remember I saw he did Rollerball. I'm like, okay, I've got to go back and interview him about that, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if anybody hasn't seen it, by design,
the Joe Caroff
story. Joe Caroff story, you gotta see it. It's
really Max or whatever they're calling themselves.
Yeah, I think they're calling themselves Max now. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So now, for us, then, fortunately, we got in touch with you because of that. Mm-hmm. And found more about your background, and we've got some James Bond stuff to talk to you about. But before we do that, so I want to jump in here to remind our listeners to subscribe to our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies, if you want to hear more about spy movies.
All right, let's keep going with the 007 theme. We've already found out who did the logo for 007. Now let's find out more about Mark. Mark, you were involved as either a writer or producer on the behind-the-scenes documentaries for both Goldfinger and Thunderball, two fabulous James Bond movies. How did you get involved with these documentaries?
Well, that was almost at the beginning of the DVD era. Actually, it was before DVDs. This was they originally came out on VHS and Laserdisc. So at that time, one of my partners on it, Lee Pfeiffer, knew someone at MGM, George Feltenstein, and he got us and John Cork, who was based in L.A. He got us a meeting, and unbelievably, Feltenstein said, "Yeah, okay." Here's the money. Go do these documentaries. You'll have use of the Eon offices at Pinewood Studios in England. And so we went out there, and it was really magical. We were in the Eon offices. There's Cubby's desk. There's his parking sign. And that's where we did the bulk of the interviews out there. And it turns out that Shrublands from Thunderball was down the street from Pinewood.
Yes. Tom and I have visited that.
Yeah. And we went out to Leavesden because they were filming GoldenEye. And we got to interview Pierce Brosnan. Oh. Yeah. I mean, he was he just so great looking, and he came out in the tuxedo. I'm like, oh my God, this is James. Here he is. This is James Bond.
Everyone says he's such a nice guy too, right? I mean,
he was very nice, very, very nice. Yeah. And in fact, like a month or two ago, he's a very talented artist, and he had an exhibit of his paintings out here in Hollywood, West Hollywood. And I kept saying, yeah, I'm going to go. And finally I saw something. It's like last day was tomorrow. So I'm like, we're going tomorrow. So my wife and I went over there, and all of a sudden, who's serving champagne at it but Pierce Brosnan?
No kidding. Oh.
So we had a chance to chat with him a little. And
I looked at some of the artwork online, and he's talented.
Very talented.
Yeah, it looked really good.
Yeah.
So people should check that out.
If you're doing stuff at Eon, then I assume getting the archival footage wasn't a problem then.
No, for that project, not at all.
All right, that's cool. Now, can you clear up something for me? Because something's got me a little confused. So when we talk to somebody, first thing I do is I go to IMDb and look the person up. And on IMDb, they have behind the scenes with Goldfinger or Thunderball. But then the title, when I look at the videos, is the making of.
Yes.
And I've also seen them up there as inside Goldfinger or Thunderball. And then there's the Goldfinger phenomenon and the
phenomenon.
Thunderball.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Those two are definitely different than these making ofs, but it sounds like there's three different names for those first two.
Yeah,
videos.
there were multiple titles, and once you do something, it's out of your hands, kind of. I think some of that was MGM marketing, but there were two documentaries for each one. It was the making of, and then the phenomenon, which was about the publicity and the hoopla and that kind of thing.
Okay, and you pretty just as much did that as two big projects. Well, here's the Thunderball project, and here's the Goldfinger project, and here's the before and the making.
Yeah, it was like four of them. Two for each. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
All right. Now, we were wondering also, Mark, was Eon Productions directly involved with these documentaries? I see that they're acknowledged at the end, of course, in the credits. But what role did they have, and how was working with them if you had to work with them?
They were fantastic. Obviously, this was the first behind-the-scenes documentaries, so they were involved, but their cooperation was amazing, and they gave us any kind of footage. We had beautiful prints of the film to work with, and they dug into the archives. I remember at one point I had Theodore Bickel's screen test for Goldfinger in my office at HBO. I was staffed at HBO at the time, and I just would look at it and go, "Oh my God, do you know what that is?"
Well, it was in one of the videos.
Yeah, it was in the Goldfinger, Goldfinger. Yeah.
And were they hands-on while you were doing it, or did you say, "Here's all the stuff"?
Alone, and I think they looked at it at the end, and they approved it.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, so one other thing that, because I look for stuff like this. So in the credits, there's Twine Entertainment as produced by. So was that you and Lee? Was that something else?
That was a three-way partnership we had created to do these between Lee and John Cork and myself.
Okay. All right. Twine. Because I love that, because that was years before the movie The World Is Not Enough came out. So you're taking it out of the novel.
That was years before everything. I mean, before the internet. Pretty much,
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's pretty wild. Yeah, we know John Cork, and Lee Pfeiffer was on a call with us with Stephen Rubin when we did his International James Bond Trivia Contest. So all great guys. Those are terrific.
Yeah. And then they know, I mean, let me tell you, I know a lot, but they know even more. It's just amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, they seem to be really good guys.
All right, so your credit is as writing the making of Goldfinger, which is just phenomenal. I just love it. Like you say, you had the screen test in there. How long did it take to write it? I mean, I assume once you got more archive footage, you had to go back and add stuff to it. And then how long did it take to actually film the interviews and stuff you did?
Oh boy, the writing of it didn't take that long, as I remember. A few days, and then I think I sent we traded back and forth, John Cork and Lee, and made whatever changes. And in terms of the interviews, we went out to Pinewood, and we had a great guy, Dave Worrell, who is the one of the publishers of Cinema Retro.
Okay.
And he had organized everything like clockwork over there, like cars picking up people, bringing them to Pinewood for the interviews. We went over with Paul Scrabo and his wife, Georgianne.
They're great.
They
are
the
great
camera
couple.
work. Yeah. And they're serious film people. They love movies, you know.
Yep.
And they did the camera. It was almost like a little family thing. And we all did it together. And we had in 1995, I think the British film industry was in a bit of a slowdown. So Pinewood was not the bustling place that it is today. And you could walk anywhere, you know. We walked around and Dave would be, okay, the volcano was over there, and that's the tank from Thunderball. I mean, you know, it was amazing.
Those were the days.
Oh,
Yeah, we'd love to get in there. That would be fun.
Yeah.
We've not been into Pinewood Studios. That would be
now it's a whole different experience because once Star Wars came in,
yes,
it's like going into Fort Knox. I mean, you have to be badged in and out everywhere, and it's different.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Paul and Georgianne. I met them on we went on a tour with Matt Sherman. And what a great couple.
Yeah.
And like you said, they do know their stuff. All right. So now I have another question for you on the process of this, because on some of this, you're credited as producing. You've also got writing credits. Is there a point where you're sitting there saying, okay, now I'm writing and now I'm producing, or is it just kind of all meld together? How does that work in buildings?
Well, the writing kind of, obviously took place beforehand, and then, but that was, it's basically a template. It's, a documentary can take on a bit of a life of its own, so the script is essentially just a kind of a guidebook. But, once you're in there and you're doing the interview, and then you get in the edit room and, this would work better here. And, and we edited them. We edited the Goldfingers in New York at HBO Studios, because I was staffed there. So I was able to get a deal on the room.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that was great editing too. And who decided at the very end of that one to end it with Sean Connery winking? That was terrific.
Oh, man.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
whoever thought of that, that was good stuff.
I'd like to say it was me, but it wasn't.
Hey, you're honest. That's cool. So when the filming took place and John Cork directed the Goldfinger one,
Thunderball ones,
and the Thunderball one,
and the Goldfinger,
right?
Yeah.
And again, we've talked to John a bunch of times on the phone and so on. Were you there for all of the filming as well, Mark? And what, if anything, happened during the filming that perhaps you had to change or rework, like on the fly? That happened?
I was there, for the in England when we shot all those. I'm trying to think on the fly. Nothing jumps out at me. I remember one of the things, Pinewood has this great dining room, wood paneled, and I remember we broke and we went to lunch. We took Guy Hamilton to lunch because he flew in to give us the interview.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
We're all sitting at a table, and I look over, and there's Dave Prowse, and I'm like, my God, there's Darth Vader. It's just magical. It was magical to be there, And then another time I was in the Eon offices, and who comes in but Eunice Gayson?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
She was lovely. These people they're wonderful people, especially the behind the scenes, the people that actually, the technicians and stuff, that was just meeting those people and talking to them was great.
Yeah. We would love to talk to more of the behind the scenes people, because I think that's what makes the movie magical, really. The work that is done behind the scenes that a lot of people don't ever see or know about.
Right.
So
well, back then it was all hands on. I mean, I remember we interviewed, I think the name was Burt Luxford. I think he was the guy under the laser beam table with a blowtorch, pulling it up, and he had a chalk mark where you don't go any farther or you're going to hit Sean Connery. And I mean, put that on your job description.
Yeah.
Well, and all the stuff in there, John Steers talking about the explosion and stuff like that. It just it's fascinating when you see all that stuff.
Yeah.
Again, we love Guy Hamilton's concept at the end where he said, we're going to take you places, show beautiful girls, have suspense, and some laughs, but he says,
Yeah.
but let's enjoy. I think that's
Yeah.
fantastic. And we think that the making of Goldfinger feature is exactly that. It's all of that and more. It's beautifully written, filmed, and choreographed to make it fun and informative to watch. So if you haven't seen it yet, you got to see it. It's fantastic.
And Patrick McNee's narration.
Yes. He is awesome.
Just to hear that voice, right?
The voice is
You couldn't get any talent to do that. Come on.
It's like velvet. Yeah.
And that was all John Cork. He handled all those sessions out in LA. I was still in New York at the time, and he did a great job.
So there are some great stories in this feature that fans of Goldfinger would love to hear. And so how much direction did you get from John Cork or either Ian Productions during the writing process? And you mentioned Ian was hands off after a while. Did you have more interaction with John?
Yeah, I mean, he I remember sending him a script, and he said, "Mind if I make some notes?" I'm like, "No, go ahead."
Sounds like John.
Eon had sent us call sheets to the films, and so that way, you could tell when they did things.
Oh, nice.
And that was super interesting to see those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to ask you what was the most interesting part of bringing this feature to the small screen, and I bet that was great to see all the call sheets and anything else. Any other things like that you remember?
Well, just being with those people, being in the Eon offices. I mean, there's Cubby's desk, and you just sit there and you go, my God, the deals that were made in this room and the careers that were born in this room. I mean,
George Lazenby fooling them. In that room, George Lazenby fooling them to be
probably,
Bond.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Well, he's a whole other story, George Lazenby.
Yes.
I know him
Do
out
you?
here, and he's a great guy. I mean, a real character, but one of the most authentic people I've ever met.
Yeah.
I mean,
we would love to talk to George, even for 10 minutes. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah, he was a good Bond. We liked the dimension he brought to Bond, and wish he would have done.
When you think that was his first movie,
yes,
he carried it off.
He did.
Absolutely.
I think he did, and I think he did it well. And he would have been a good Bond in subsequent movies. I think he would have been great. Would have been
for
one
sure.
people talked about. So
yeah.
All right, that's cool.
So I'm going to go back into, we talked a little bit about this, but I want to dive into this a little bit more. You've got the archival footage that you're getting, and you said you had no problem getting that stuff from Eon, but figuring out what goes in and what doesn't make it in. Because I mean, I'm sure you probably showed less than 10% of the archival stuff that really you could have. So how do you figure out what makes it in? Is it just because of the story or what?
Yeah, I mean, the story kind of drives it, and then and what you have to work with. Now Lee has an insane collection of stills, from the Bond films, and plus, the fan community that we know. You put the word out, hey, we're looking for anything from this sequence or that. People have incredible things,
That makes because there were a lot of credits for James Bond fan groups.
Yes.
In there, and so that you were getting some of the stuff from them as well.
Oh, sure, yeah.
All right, that's cool. I look at that thing, it's like, where the hell did they get all that stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just amazing when you see what people have,
Yeah. James Bond is a phenomenon, like you said. It really isn't just a trend or this or that. I mean, it's a phenomenon, and it's a worldwide phenomenon, which is unreal. When you talk to these people, and we interact with them all the time on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that, the passion that these folks have for James Bond is just incredible.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it's one of those things where it touches you, I mean, I remember being a kid growing up in New York City, and my dad took me to one of those double features, and I was sold. After that, and then I, Diamonds Are Forever was the first new Bond movie I saw, and to this day, it's one of my favorite films.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Even the bad Bond movies are great, and people have different opinions on what's bad, what's good. I like Diamonds Are Forever as well.
Yeah.
And
I don't find it bad. I mean,
I don't either.
Okay, Vegas is cheesy, but what are you going to do? That's where it was set.
It is cheesy.
Yeah.
It's a lot more cheesy now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, what was funny is the first time I went to Vegas was the late 90s, And of course, I went to the Hilton, which was the White House.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I said to the first staffer I saw, "Where's the Starlight Lounge?" And she looked at me like I had three heads.
Yeah,
that's funny.
good.
Let's jump into a little bit into the Goldfinger phenomenon. And on that one, there's no writer credited. So was that you? Did you guys all work together on that, or?
I'm trying to think. I believe so. I think that's,
okay.
That's how that worked, because that was about the publicity and that kind of thing. And again, that's where all the people went into their collections and, hey, we have this and that, I remember there was a photo of people planning the New York premiere at just two people sitting in a restaurant. It's like, who has that? But somebody had it.
That's great.
Archive.
Yeah, really. All right, so let's switch then into more into the Thunderball stuff here. And one thing that had me kind of piqued my interest is you brought up the copyright issues with that movie and the novel. And you have archival footage with Jack Whittingham and Kevin McClory in there. So, and I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Did Eon Productions or MGM or Fleming Publications, and did anybody try to shape how much of that you talked about?
I don't think so. I mean, John was really, Thunderball was his baby, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, again, it was pretty much hands off, and we, they trusted us. They knew that we were serious fans and we weren't, we were going to really go all out on this, and that's what we did.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's and it's a fact. So you're dealing with the facts there, and people need to know the facts. And I think that was it was well done in the documentary, and obviously to point. That's great. So is there anything you found out in making these documentaries, Mark, where it didn't kind of make the final cut, or you wanted something in there that didn't get in there and that the audience might find interesting?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. Well, I remember in the making of Goldfinger, I think we ended with Pierce Brosnan talking about how he saw the film as a wee laddie in Ireland. And that was at the end. And I'm like, no, we gotta open with this. But I was overruled,
Yeah. Oh, that would have been good.
Yeah. I'm trying to think other facts. I think pretty much most of what we came up with was in the documentary. I mean, we wanted to put it all out there,
And did you have a time limit for that? Did you have it's got to be a certain amount?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, we had a certain amount of time, and then we had to deliver it, and you were always aware of that pressure.
And the length of the documentary, I mean, too.
Yes, I think there was something where it could only be.
They were both 27 minutes.
Yes, so it couldn't be 30 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
I think there was. I know there was a reason for that, but I just can't recall it.
Yeah,
probably if they were going to put it on TV, or how much they could fit on a DVD or VHS at that time.
Yeah.
So
again, I love looking at these and what these folks say in these documentaries, because it is so insightful, and if you dig into it a little bit, it's so deep. Like, I loved what Ken Adams said in the end of in the making of Thunderball piece. He said, "I found that whatever I design, someone in the world was able to realize these designs to make them practical." And he was so excited about that. I mean, this must have gotten his creative juices just flowing, right? Can you talk about a little bit about the brilliance of Ken Adams? Yeah, I mean, he's so genuine in the making of a piece, but humble.
Paul and I flew up to Toronto because he was doing a movie up there, and we went to this gorgeous apartment, and we interviewed him, and you can tell the man is a genius, Yes. And we just it's hard to put into words how smart he was,
and so
and
humble.
His wife was a firebrand, Letizia, I believe her name was.
Okay.
Yeah. And they would bicker. No, you can't say that. It was just great. It was really, really a great experience. And every once in a while, I would write to him, before he passed.
Yeah.
He always acknowledged. He was always,
Yeah, he seemed such a humble guy, but he's got this brilliant talent, and that I love seeing his sketches of the sets when he's doing it, and think, oh my God, just to think like he thinks. It must have been a thrill to talk to him and sit down with him.
I remember the room where Goldfinger has the other gangsters, and he's talking about his plans. He called that the rumpus room.
The rumpus room.
Yes. Only someone like Ken Adam would, but it was the rumpus room.
Yes.
But I've got to say, as great as the sets for Goldfinger were, to digress just a tiny bit, the volcano crater from You Only Live Twice, I don't think has ever been equaled and will never be equaled. That's just on a level way above. I think
that was fabulous, and I think there was like $1 million just for that.
Yes,
set.
he had $1 million. How much do you think it'll cost? $1 million. Okay, you got it.
Man. Yeah, that was just a fantastic set. Yeah, it is hard to rival.
I guess if you got $1 million for a set, you might be able to do something with it, especially back then.
Especially in 1967.
That was a lot of money. Oh my God!
Exactly. So now, in making these things, we've got the footage of all the different locations and stuff. Have you gotten to many of those? Because you were kind of locked up at Eon working on this, so you weren't out traversing, seeing these things. Is that a passion of yours to go see where these things were made?
Yeah, whenever, we were just on vacation in the Bahamas with some friends, and I had always wanted to see the locations, but I hadn't. But this time I made a point of reaching out to the people that own Palmyra getting on the Atlantis resort to see the seawall that Bond jumps off of. Yeah. And so I finally did that. Unfortunately, the one sad thing was Love Beach is no longer the way it was. It got hit by a hurricane, I heard, and also now there's development. There's houses that are built there. So
right. The Kiss Kiss Club is different.
Yeah, the long gone. Yeah, long gone. Yeah.
But it's cool. Tom and I love to go to the filming locations. We've been around. I was just visiting my daughter in New York last week, and she lives in Brooklyn now, but I forced her to take me to a couple of Bond locations from Live and Let Die there. The old cold voodoo place.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've been there.
And the Filet of Soul.
The best is in Tokyo. I have a great friend in Japan, Makoto, and he, serious Bond fan, and he took me to a couple of the locations, including the alley that Connery walks down in the Ginza in the beginning of the movie. And I would go there. I went there at least twice during our and I'm just photographing every inch of it. And people are walking by going, it's an alley. There's a vending, but what are you doing? But I was photographing every inch of it. Yeah.
I know. Tom and I were in Rabida National Park in Portugal, where Tracy gets killed in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah. We're on that road, and we're doing the same thing. We're doing video and taking millions of pictures, and cars are driving by looking at us like, what are they taking a picture of a corner for? There's a curve in the road. It's like, what?
I went on Martin Mulder's tour.
He's a great guy.
Yeah, and that was the last stop, and it was just an incredible location. And then what made it even better was when the Portuguese Highway Patrol pulled up and said, get out, because we're on that road.
Yeah, right, it's dangerous.
And we're all taking photos of the guardrails.
And those granite ones are the same as from the movie. They put the metal one in now, but the granite one, and we found the one that's on an angle, so we found exactly where the car was. So it was good.
Oh my God! All right, we get crazy back there, the three of us, because I missed that. But
Dan's a stickler for you've got to be in the exact inch of where everything was.
Well, that's what I was trying to do that on Love Beach. I was trying to find the palm tree, and my wife, it was 100 degrees. My wife's like, we're getting out of here now. Okay.
We know that.
Yep.
Anyway, so it's always fun.
It is, and it's good to talk to somebody who's a Bond fan about the Bond stuff, especially since you worked on those documentaries.
Fantastic.
You've also worked on two other series of documentaries on two other series. You've done Halloween and you've done the Lion King documentaries, right?
Oh yeah. Well, the Lion King. My wife was the chief marketing officer of Technicolor,
Okay.
And I began, I did that video for them. So it was basically about Technicolor's involvement in The Lion King. It wasn't like the official.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But if I could just mention one project that I did for them, it was their 100-year anniversary video.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
And the gift of that was getting to meet Olivia de Havilland.
Oh, wow.
And that, I said, let's talk to the last surviving cast member of your biggest artistic triumph, Gone with the Wind. And sure enough, somebody knew somebody who knew her.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so we were going to go to Paris to see her. And the day before we left, her assistant called and said, oh, she's having second thoughts. She doesn't want to do it. And we said, look, we're already booked. Let's just go meet her and talk to her. And so we stayed in her hotel. We spent 3 days just chatting with her. And by the end, it's like, oh, yes, whatever you need. And just a wonderful lady. And,
awesome.
We were friends with her till she passed.
That's fantastic. What a great opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
What did you do for Halloween then?
Yeah, Halloween.
Well, that was a project. And this very rare. That's probably the only time it happened. It dropped into my lap. I was at in those days, Cinemax used to cover horror conventions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was at a Hammer horror convention in Maryland, and Anchor Bay had a booth set up because they were releasing the Hammer films back then. And their head of acquisitions, Jay Douglas, who was a wonderful man, he said, you ever hear about Halloween? I'm like, of course, I love that movie. He goes, you want to do a documentary? Yes. So they basically handed me the budget. I think it was $20,000, and I, through HBO, I knew camera people, and so I got a great camera guy, and with all the gear, and Tronkus Pictures let us use their production office in Century City, and so same thing. We just had whoever we could get to come in, and that's how we did that one.
Awesome.
Now you're doing something now, right? With Area 5150.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
That's, one of my longtime desires was to actually write screenplays. And I've written a bunch and gotten some wonderful rejections, but
brutal business, man.
Oh, it is. It is.
That's got to be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard no more ways than than you can count. But I met this very terrific young director, Sean Heights, and we met at the Three from Hell premiere.
Okay.
And he was wearing a T-shirt that said Dracula. I'm like, oh, I love Dracula. And anyway, we had breakfast, and we were both Area 51 freaks, and we're all interested in aliens. And so we wrote the script together, and he directed it. And we wound up getting Vernon Wells, the actor from The Road Warrior, who played that crazy biker. We got him. He told one funny story, because obviously you're sitting next to someone like that. You want to pull out a few stories. And he said, well, Mel said that they knew it was getting cold when my butt cheeks would turn purple. Apparently it gets cold out there in the in the middle of the outback. And we put a young cast of people in LA, including myself. I played a role, and Felissa Rose. She's one of our stars in the film, and she's just an icon in the horror field, and she was lovely to work with. Yeah. It's coming together. We're trying to finish it, and we're hoping to get it out next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get the Area 51 part, but what's the 50?
Well, 5150 is the police code for an insane person.
Okay. All right.
And I was coming up with these names like Paradise Ranch or Dreamland, and Sean said Area 5150, and I'm like, brilliant, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for clarifying, because I was confused, but now I get it. Now that's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
But it's funny. It's be careful what you wish for, because I want to produce a movie, and I'm one of the producers, and it is tough. I mean, it's 17-hour, 15-hour days, and you're out in the desert, and it's hot during the day, and at night it's freezing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But hey, it's a big learning experience.
Oh, I bet.
Now,
yeah.
And you're doing this and part of the work is being done in the middle of the writer and actor strike. And now you said you're not part of the WGA,
Mm-hmm.
but how is that? Is that affecting what you're trying to do? And I assume you've got friends in the industry. I mean, what is the effect of that strike right now? And we're recording this in the middle of September 2023.
Yeah, well, first of all, our film was shot before any of this happened.
Okay.
But yeah, I do know people. They're out on the picket lines, and look, we're in a brave new world right now. Nobody knows how AI is going to go, and
Right.
there used to be the traditional income models. You had theatrical, cable,
right,
DVD. Those were all great revenue streams, and now that's all changed.
Yeah.
I'm hoping theatrical comes back, but very few movies get a theatrical release.
right.
Yeah.
20, 30 years ago, a movie like Area 5150, would go out. They'd spend $1 million on making it, and then they'd spend $25 million promoting it. And if you're lucky, you have a hit. But now it's all streaming, and my understanding is it's hard to trace all those revenue streams. How many people are watching something?
Yes, that
and
is
so everybody's nervous, and everybody's trying to get a piece of that pie, and obviously the people who own the pie, aren't that willing to give that, but hopefully it'll come together because again, there's a ripple effect, it's hitting restaurants, it's hitting, the below the line people, an actor making, 20 million a movie, he can go to the south of France for a couple of months, but somebody, trying to pay a mortgage and put their kids through school, it's tough.
Yeah. Well, most actors are not making 20 million.
No,
it's only the big
it's
stars.
like the one,
Yeah, I think
and
that's
like you say,
and
then it's everybody else, like you were saying, the restaurateurs, the caterers, everybody.
The drivers. A movie employs tons and tons of people. I can tell you one other thing. One of the great things about being a writer producer at HBO is I used to do movie junkets, and the only time I was nervous was when I interviewed Sean Connery, and it was for a movie called Playing by Heart.
Oh, okay.
And, you have your 5 minutes with him, and I couldn't ask him any Bond questions, but he was a little standoffish. And then at the very end of the interview, my mother was a librarian, and I said, if you ever come across anything unusual, save it for me. And she had these 2 books from the 1950s on golf. And so at the end of the interview, I said, Mr. Connery, I want to give you these. And he just lit up. He shook my hand. He went, these are fantastic. And I remember I got up and the cameraman there goes, you got anything for me?
Is your name Sean Connery?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh well, one other thing, I had a great friend at the New York Times, and she got us into the green room when he was getting a Lifetime Achievement Award at Lincoln Center. So I went up to him and I practically hugged him and I love your work. It means so much, blah, blah. I said, could my wife take a photo? Of course. And then he was surrounded by paparazzi and she was in the back going, I can't do it. And he picked up on it and he went like this and they parted like the Red Sea. And
Wow.
she took the photo and Connery looks at me and goes, your flash didn't go off. So to this day, whenever we take photos, we go, your flash didn't go off.
That's a good story.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah.
It was nice that he did that, though. Part of the Red Sea.
He knew. He's a pro for that many years. He gets it.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I was going to ask you one last Bond question.
Sure.
Would you like to work on a James Bond movie now? And would you if you were asked?
Yes, I would, but I could imagine the pressure. I mean, Area 5150 doesn't have a quarter, probably 100th of a Bond budget, and there's a lot of. I couldn't imagine, doing a $150-200 million movie, but absolutely. If they needed somebody to polish the cars in the parking lot, I would do it.
Tom and I got an opportunity to do that with the Ian Fleming Foundation. Actually, they were the ones who collect the vehicles.
Sure.
And we know, Doug Rodinius and
Yes.
some of the folks from that. And we got invited to one of their work weekends. And Tom and I did polish one of the cars.
Oh, wow.
From one of the movies.
We couldn't do restorations, but we could put a coat of wax on.
Yeah.
So we've done a bunch of little videos for them as well, too.
Yeah.
So they're a great organization.
They had the Bond in Motion out here.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And Doug Doug invited me to the load-in, and let me tell you, just seeing those vehicles up close, and I actually got to sit in the Aston Martin for 2 minutes, and it's just, your mind just takes you right back to those films.
I know. They've got the helicopter from Russia with Love and the Jaguar. It's like, it was fun. We got the...
Can I tell you a helicopter story?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am a huge Bond collector. I have been since, I was a teenager, and I had the opportunity, and You Only Live Twice is probably one of my favorite movies. So somebody had one of the model helicopters from You Only Live Twice for sale.
Okay.
And sight unseen, yes, I'll buy it. And I thought, it's going to be this big. I'll put it on a desk. I'll look at it. The thing comes, it's 6 feet long in a box like a coffin. And I remember the truck pulls up, and we were living back east. And I said, put it in the basement. And I didn't even tell my wife for a while. And when she saw it, she hit the roof. So that's the last time I ever buy a 6-foot helicopter from a Bond film.
Oh, that's funny. Did you ever assemble it?
Oh, it was built.
Oh, it was built
together. It was the one that Little Nelly shoots. Well, he shoots them all down, but it's the one that was burned and you see it crash. So part of it was covered in flames, and not a doubt in my mind that it was the real thing. But back then they didn't have the technology they have today. So
right,
it was big.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Miniatures take on a different form.
It's cool to have artifacts from the actual movie, though. That is cool. Do you have others pieces like that?
I have some of the fighting stars from that film.
Yeah,
and I got one of the spearheads from Thunderball. They made a bunch of balsa wood ones. I have one of those.
Yeah, that's cool. Very nice.
It's too bad, back then you go after the film crew and you could scoop everything up.
Yeah, not anymore. Huh?
No, not anymore. Well, that's the thing. People sell them, and that, You know
the Kingsman series?
Yeah.
So Poppy's Diner, a crew member took that home and made it a real diner.
Wow.
So
very understanding wife. It sounds
yes. And it was like, they were like, well, we're just going to get rid of it. So he's like, can I take it? Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I shot some network ID spots for Cinemax in some of the old Times Square movie palaces before they knocked them down. And I remember the last day I brought a duffel bag and I filled it up with stuff because it was all going to get destroyed. I got a beautiful brass projector lens.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine the porno films that went through that?
Yeah, really.
Just the little statues and things. Unfortunately, I opened this door and it was wall-to-wall cardboard standees from movies, but they were drenched. They were worthless. They had mildew and stuff on them. But yeah.
Yeah, it's fun collecting. It's
absolutely.
It's a thrill to have that stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, but the more you get into it, the more kind of obsessive you get,
Yeah, the more room it takes.
If I have the half sheet, I need the one sheet, and I need the insert, before you know it. Why can't I pay my mortgage this month? What happened?
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of space. It's great when you can do it. I collect autographs, historical autographs and stuff, but I only get so much wall space allocated.
That's the problem. You have to buy a warehouse in order to. Well, I picked up something a couple of years ago. A guy that had worked at United Artists in the 60s, he was given a, what do you call it? Like a proof copy of the Only Live Twice poster.
Oh, an artist proof, like an artist proof.
Artist proof.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
And I said, how do you still have this? He goes, it's been in my garage for 55 years. I forgot I had it. My kids don't want it. I'm like, well, good news for me.
Oh, man.
I think I can find somebody that would want it.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I was petrified he put it on eBay and then I'd never be able to afford it. So I made him a decent offer.
That's terrific. All right. That's cool.
All right. This has been great.
Yeah. All right. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks, Mark. We want to thank you for joining us today. It's cool to find out how these documentaries are made and your involvement with them. We hope Area 5150 is a huge success for you. Thanks again. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. This was great.
All right, this has been Dan
and Tom
of SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Please subscribe to our show. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it.